I have an awesomely sad moment here from Rush Limbaugh's radio show for you. This happened, I believe, on Friday. Rush is going to drone on about how he's still cool. I'm still cool. I'm still hip. And I'm totally not irrelevant, I promise. Watch.
And then I got to thinking how sad it is that liberalism has now corrupted late-night comedy. Some people like those late-night comedy shows. When I was growing up, Johnny Carson, you try to keep the TV lights low so your parents wouldn't know you were watching. And then as I grew older and Johnny Carson was, I'd have to hide the fact I was watching it. It was, watch it. And Letterman came along and watched that. But in the last number of years, and I always try to guard against, maybe it's just I'm getting older and those shows are made for young demographics and I'm not in the demographic anymore. I always try to avoid the old fuddy-duddy position. Always, when I was growing up, I always promised myself I was not going to become one of those old fuddy-duddies that thought everything about modern times was an absolute disaster. And I was always going to do what I could to stay young at heart. That I was never not going to abandon the Beatles and go back to Sinatra. It was never, my parents never adapted. They liked what they liked. And I'm finding people my age, what their most favorite radio stations are? Stations that play the 60s, play the oldies from a happier time gone by. And I've since learned because of the business I'm in that if you are not in the 18 to 49 demographic, nobody cares about you. When you hit 50 and older, advertisers abandon you. They don't care because they don't think they can change your mind. But until then, you are fair game. And so anything the 18 to 49 demographic is doing is considered hip and interesting, and we need to keep our eyes on it. But once you hit 50, nobody cares. I vowed I was not going to play. I was not going to become irrelevant at 50. And, of course, now I'm 66, and I am not irrelevant. I am as and more relevant than ever. But it's a daily fight. It's a daily battle. And, of course, it's an ongoing battle not to succumb to the negativity that's out there. Nobody wants to hear it. I certainly don't like rolling out of bed and seeing it. But it just hit me today. Did you ever stop to think? Because it's net neutrality, folks, is an entire fraud. It's as fraudulent and hoax-oriented as climate change.
That is fucking precious. He's like, the kids, you gotta make sure you're not like an old fuddy-duddy, and you're not one of those people who looks at everything in modern times and goes, oh man, this is all stupid. Anyway, net neutrality. Isn't it great what Ajit Pai did? Net neutrality was stupid. Climate change is obviously a hoax, right? Right? You are the living embodiment of the thing you said you were going to try to fight against. No, I'm not going to become that typical old guy who has all the old guy opinions, who doesn't have his finger on the pulse of people anymore, and I'm going to make sure that I'm like that. Rush, your entire career has been painting a picture, painting a worldview that is directly in line with old white dudes with money and power who control the system. That's your whole fucking career. There was not a single point in your career where it was like, Rush Limbaugh is so cool and hip and, the young guys are really into Rush. Did you guys hear that rant that he did where he loves big oil? Wasn't that great? Isn't it wonderful when he argues that you should kick starving kids off of food stamps? He's so cool. And by the way, it shows you wonder why you do so shitty. Look at how out of touch you are. He's still stuck on the fucking climate change thing. He's like, yeah, obviously a hoax. Scientists are stupid and I'm smart. They're so wrong with their fucking peer-reviewed studies. Assholes. Obviously there's a conspiracy of big science that works together. And what they try to do is they try to get more grant money. $40,000 a year each. They're so corrupt. It's not this fucking oil CEOs who get millions upon millions of dollars and whose whole business model relies on us not abandoning oil. It's not the conspiracy doesn't go that way. The conspiracy goes big science. Oh my God, they just want that grant money. They're so fucking greedy, scientists. They obviously rigged it all. Oh my God. net neutrality. He's such an idiot. He doesn't even understand that this shit hurts him. Well, actually, I don't know, because his internet audience is probably 12 people, because the people who listen to him don't know how to work the internet. But this is not going to help people who are partisan commentators on either side, because all you're gonna have the internet service providers go, no, we don't like their opinions. Let's just put them in the slow lane. He manages to be wrong about pretty much everything. And by the way, it's not even true that, the beliefs that he's espousing, that it's impossible to take those views and somehow cater to a younger audience, because it actually is done. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that it's done effectively, but I mean, Ben Shapiro has a fucking following, and he believes almost everything Rush Limbaugh believes. Steven Crowder has a following, and, he's like the younger version of Rush Limbaugh or Bill O'Reilly. You have Tucker Carlson, who's got a show on Fox that does, pretty well in the younger demographic, relatively speaking, when you compare it to the other right-wing talk shows. Paul Joseph Watson is a right-winger, and he's managed to take, those kinds of beliefs and repackage them in a way that's appealing to young people. So it honestly is just that Rush Limbaugh is that shitty at what he does. Like, that's what it is. I mean, part of it is that his ideas are hard to sell to a younger audience because, younger people overwhelmingly lean left. But it's also just because, dude, you're boring as fuck. God, you're fucking boring. And it's like he thinks he's so brilliant, but he just says whatever the standard, right-wing talking points are for that day that are coming from establishment Republicans. He just makes those points on air and acts like he's some sort of genius. It's like, you couldn't be further from a genius. You're the exact opposite of a genius. And then on what planet? At the beginning, he's like, liberalism has now corrupted late-night comedy. What do you think? Fucking back in the day, the hosts weren't left-leaning? The late-night hosts have always been left-leaning. They've never the fucking late-night hosts. Anyway, so let's talk about how Jesus is fucking wonderful and the nuclear family should stay together and gay people fuck gay people. What are you talking about, Rush? But the best part by far and away was, I'm not irrelevant! He said, droning on, I promised myself I wouldn't become irrelevant. And by golly, I'm 66 years old and I'm totally not irrelevant. I'm really talking to a lot of people right now. Why don't you all like me anymore? He even hinted in the middle there about advertisers running away. I don't know if you heard it. Go back and listen to it. He's like, when you're between 18 and 49, you get all the advertisers. Then when you're above that age, the advertisers run. No, Rush, the advertisers run from you. Because of shit you say and because you suck at your job. That's why they run. It's not that everybody who's in that age bracket. Bill O'Reilly was number one. He's about your age. He was number one when he got let go because he can't fucking keep his dick in his pants and he's a sexual harasser or whatever. But it's you, Rush. It's you. God, I chug those Rush Limbaugh tears. I'm not irrelevant. I swear I'm not irrelevant. Why did my advertisers leave me? Why does nobody listen to me? And by the way that they do the ratings for radio, total bullshit. Total bullshit. They used to literally give people a book that they're supposed to fill out when they listen to the radio. And then you'd have to send the book back in, and then they would do some sort of calculation based on how many people sent the book in and when they said they listened. So back in like the 90s, he used to brag about having like 20 or 30 million listeners. Nonsense. He doesn't have that. And then, they recently moved to a different way of determining who's listening. They used to do books. Now they have some sort of tracking system that's like, it's a meter that determines who's listening. They could tell who's listening to the different radio stations at different times. And as soon as they switched that format, they went, holy shit, nobody in the country is listening to Mark Levin, who's another right-wing radio host, Rush Limbaugh. People just don't listen to them. They don't listen to them. So that's why he's whining and bitching and moaning. I bet he's probably, I don't know when his contract is up, but he's probably in renegotiations at some point soon. And he's running out, man. Listen, in New York, his flagship station, they were playing Dead Air at one time. And he got kicked off the flagship station in New York. So he lost his flagship station. They were playing Dead Air before he was kicked off in fucking public service announcements, And so now the recent trick has been he gets all of his money not from advertisers, because he can't make it in a free market anymore, because he's been toxic for advertisers for a long time, especially since the Sandra Fluke incident, talking about how this woman's a whore because she wants birth control or whatever, back during the Obamacare debate. So for a long time, he's been toxic. He gets all of his money now from right-wing think tanks. So they fund him, they fund Glenn Beck because they want them to push out their propaganda. But guess what? As soon as the right-wing think tanks understand and realize, shit, nobody's listening to these guys, they're going to immediately pull the chute, cut the cord, and they're done. So, it's a matter of time until he's off the air. He should consider himself lucky he's still on the air right now, because he really is a welfare case. His money gets made from right-wing think tanks. He is a welfare case of the right-wing think tanks. The second they want to cut off their money to them, which at some point they will, it's a wrap for Glenn Beck. It's a wrap for Rush Limbaugh. So there's a reason he's whining, I'm not irrelevant, I'm more relevant than ever. There's a reason he's saying that. Thou doth protest too much. He's saying that because indeed he is irrelevant, and on some level, he knows it.